Right now, with their convention events delayed by at least a day, Republicans essentially are postponing their big gathering in Tampa due to an uninvited guest, Tropical Storm Isaac. We've been talking about him. He's barreling his way toward Florida and the Gulf Coast. The impact this delay could have on what Governor Romney and Republicans hoped would be a big opportunity to get their message out, with the prime time spotlight largely on them. Let's talk about it. Joining us from Tampa, David Drucker, the associate politics editor for Roll Call. You know, we've been talking about this, David. They've been planning this for years, really. There are all kinds of speeches and events set, and now here comes a tropical storm or a hurricane. How much is it going to affect the Republicans trying to get their message out?
Well, John, I guess this is what happens when you schedule an event like this at the peak of hurricane season in an area where there are hurricanes. But that aside, I don't think this is too much trouble for the Republicans if the delay doesn't go beyond Monday, because the networks had already decided, the broadcast networks, not Fox News, not the other cable nets, that they weren't going to cover this in prime time. That's why the Romney campaign made sure that Ann Romney's speech was moved to Tuesday, and they had done some other juggling. So I think if this thing gets kicked off as it is now planned on Tuesday, the Republicans and Romney will be just fine in terms of their goal of communicating who this guy is and what he wants to do if he's elected president.
But we saw 4 years ago, even though the convention was in a hurricane-safe city, St. Paul, there were still alterations made because of Hurricane Gustav hitting Louisiana. You don't want to be seen partying and celebrating when people are losing their homes and that kind of thing.
No, and that could be problematic, but I still think that people understand that hurricanes happen, that you can still have a political event. And I think what we were dealing with 4 years ago was a little different because Hurricane Katrina was only 3 years past, and there was still a lot of sensitivity about that. This could be a problem if the hurricane hits New Orleans and it's extremely bad, but I don't think that the Republicans have to cancel the event Tuesday, cancel the entire event simply because there's a storm.
Typically, during during conventions, one party has kind of laid low and let the other party have their moment in the sun. The Democrats don't seem to intend to do that this time. And there's also been a lot of talk about ground game. President Obama and the Democratic National Committee are saying, you know, the Republicans might have the money to spend, but we have the ground game. Reince Priebus, who heads the Republican National Committee, said this: I find all of their ground game talk to be garbage. They've got a decent ground game, but they overhype it so much. We just crushed them on the ground, door to door, and with absentee ballots. What do you make of that?
Well, I interviewed Mr. Priebus yesterday, and I was asking him about the Obama ground game. They've invested a lot of money. It's technologically advanced. I expect it to be probably among the best we've ever seen in terms of presidential get-out-the-vote efforts. What he told me was that based on what they did in Wisconsin in the gubernatorial recall, where Governor Scott Walker won and avoided a recall, they made 4.5 million live voter contacts, and the process, the system they put in place, he thinks they can replicate. And while he told me he thinks the ground game that the Obama team has is good, he thinks the Republicans are going to be good enough, if not better than a lot of people think. And so it's just something he's not too worried about. And, you know, interesting about these conventions, you're right, the opposition used to go fishing, take a vacation, but I think this race is so close, I think the country is so closely divided, that even if a candidate wanted to take the week off, I don't think their partisans would stand for it, and I think this is just the political environment we're in. What I'm interested to see in the fall is, are the Republicans really, have they brought their ground game along since 4 years ago to the point where it can compete with the Obama team? If this race is within a point or less, maybe 1.5 or 2, ground games can be crucial. If it's beyond that, it ends up not mattering.
David Drucker from Roll Call. David, always good to have you on. Thanks.